Hello, welcome to Bread-a-licious. Today, whole wheat loaves and some techniques to get you there. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so we're making our pâté ferment, all right? We have the water and the yeast in here, great. We also have our flour and also our salt for our pâté ferment. So that's gonna go in here. So make sure that's all incorporated. Okay, now what is important is it's gonna look a little dry. That's okay, just make sure you get the full hydration, get the edges. Okay, and it should look like that. That's pretty good. And make sure you get into those edges. Okay, also while you're thinking about it, get your oven preset at 420 degrees for baking. But after 16 hours, that's what your pâté ferment looks like. Kind of spongy, sticky, and all that stuff. But that's what it looks like after 16 hours. So that dry thing you just saw turns into that. Pretty cool. Okay. Now, onto our dough, because that's got to sit for 2 hours, and then we have to fold it halfway in between. Now, here's a trick that you can do. With instant dry yeast, always follow your expiration dates. But for me, I added the honey and the water in here, and it's starting to bubble. It's only been like this for a few minutes. But this is a way to tell if your yeast is dead or not. I'm seeing a lot of movement, a lot of bubbling. That's a good sign that it's active. So then I add my flour. We mix it, get it ready to go. Okay, that's happening. That's looking pretty good. And now I'm gonna add my pâté ferment to it to get it rocking and rolling here. Okay, gonna stir that in a little bit. Again, don't be afraid to use the whisk. Now, we kind of have a thunderstorm going, so it's been humid all day. So it looks slightly wet to me. So I'm just gonna add a slight dusting of flour, which again, always have flour on hand for that reason. Always, always, always. I'm just gonna add a little bit of, and see if that's behaving, and it is. And then I need flour for my board anyway, so I'm just gonna put that on there. Alrighty. And then, we're going to knead this. And then, after I knead this for a couple, we're gonna put it in our bin. And again, when you hand knead, you'll have to hand knead it for 10 minutes or so. But once we do that, we'll let it rest for 2 hours, fold it an hour into the process. We'll be right back. So let's talk about instant active yeast and how the rules are. If you're baking a lot, might be good to go ahead and get the large jar of active dry yeast, and then that it stays in the fridge after you open it. If you're only doing breads every once in a while, I recommend these packets. But again, with yeast, you must follow the expiration date. If it's past the expiration date, it may not work for you. It's a common mistake. The other thing too is some people are measuring out their ingredients, and they'll put salt on top of the yeast and then go away for some time. You can't do that either. If you need to put your flour, yeast, and salt in the same bowl, separate the yeast and the salt. That way you don't have a chance of the salt killing the yeast. That's usually why I put the yeast in the water, test that, let that bubble, see, make sure that's active. That way if it's not, I can grab a new packet or get a different yeast without having to throw away a bunch of flour. So that's something to think about, okay? The same thing too is when we're going over stone maintenance and whatnot. To clean stones, you can get one of those metal brushes, but a lot of people don't like them, and I don't either. They can actually scratch them. I recommend natural bristle brushes. You're still gonna get a little bit of a scraping sound, but it's a nice abrasive way to clean your baking stone, okay? And that's gonna be some things we go over as we go into our baking stone segment. Okay, so to do a trifold, you take the dough on one end, and notice we're an hour into our bulk formation, so it's gotten a little relaxed. You lift it, go to the third one, also kind of like a letter fold. I'm scraping all that dough. For ease, I turn it, and then I go in, and I just get that going, and fold, and again, I just got a little bit of dough scraps. That is perfectly okay. Okay. Then I press that down. Another fold here. Another fold here. And this is where you just need some conviction. You scrape it really good, pick up, and flip. Then I'm gonna re-spread it out so it doesn't have to do as much relaxation. I'm gonna scrape the sides because those can dry out on you. So see that little side? I'm just gonna get that all tucked in there. And that's your trifold, okay? And you put the lid on so it doesn't dry out. On this segment, we are reviewing baking stones. So many of you at home probably have the circular pizza stone. Mine's a little used, but that's okay. That's what baker life is for. These are great for pizzas, but they're not quite thick. The other thing too is these grooves don't match all the ovens out there, so it's sometimes a nuisance. And with this being right here, these grooves don't go into the racks at all, so it's a little difficult. Although not an ideal thickness, there's also these miniature square pizza doughs where you're able to assemble. What is the advantage is, depending on oven size, one pack comes with these 4, but you can do a 2x3 and kind of get a good amount of space. Not the thickness you like, but again, it's actually a nice option for multiple different size ovens, or if you have a little toaster oven, you're just trying to do a singular loaf of bread, this might be a better buy. This, however, is perfect. This has a good thickness, okay? And I use this often for my breads. And it actually is from Yum House. And what I like about this is Yum House delivers it in this package. Keep the box. The advantage is if you're moving or don't bake all the time, it's actually a nice storage utensil. It can keep it safe if you keep the packaging. It's labeled and all that stuff. So it's an easy way to keep your baking stones safe in storage. So that's actually a really nice feature. And that's our review of baking stones. Alright, so we're about to shape our whole wheat bread, and we're going to use a baker's clouche. This is also called a linen clouche or baker's linen. It's to allow for the bread to kind of have air without being exposed to air, so it can expand. The key thing is getting a good amount of bread flour and getting that into the cloth. What's nice is these are machine washable, but you want to make sure you get a lot of flour in this, and then do a decent job rubbing it in. You want the fibers to have flour in them so that the dough doesn't stick into the fibers. So that's a very big deal, okay? So I'm gonna hold this off to the side now that that's been floured. I'm gonna grab our whole wheat dough, and as you can see, it's gotten nice and relaxed and spread, even with me separating from the sides. So after 2 hours, 15 minutes, that's what it should look like, okay? And again, just have conviction. We're at a stage where we can always put it back together. Ooh, it is a little sticky, so I'm gonna put a little bit of flour down. Not a lot, just a little bit. This will make 2 large loaves, 4 small loaves, or 3 medium size. We're gonna go 3 medium size today. I'm gonna kind of eyeball it. Okay. And what's nice is now that this has been floured, we can kind of use it to cover while we develop a skin. Or so it doesn't develop a skin and we can form. I'm gonna flour my hands just a little bit. Always have a little flour ready. All right, so to shape, you need to get some of the air out. You wanna also have, in this bread, our whole wheat loaves, we don't wanna have too many holes, large holes. So you fan it out. Gotta go the other way, there we go. And then I'm gonna tight, and I really press. I'm pressing really hard here. I'm gonna roll, then fold the ends, then I'm gonna beanbag roll it. Really tight. Get that nice roll going, and then, so y'all can see it, I then seam it. You really are karate chopping this, and you just, to get that seam going, and then I'm gonna roll. A little sticky still. I'm gonna add a little bit more flour, and then I'm just gonna, alrighty. Roll for evenness. It's almost like a baguette size, just not as long. And now that I'm a little bit more comfortable with that, I'm gonna put that here. I'm gonna grab the next one. And again, same technique. And so that you can see it at home, I'm rolling it, getting the ends, and then pressing. Do that. There we go. Now we're cooking. All right, and then I'm gonna roll. So I don't always worry about even lengths with home bread. I just get her done. Again, you are woosahing in the kitchen. Acceptance, it is important. Gonna roll. Okay. All right. And then I take my cloth here, flour side up. And then what I do is I bring this up. Put this loaf here. Again, I'm leaving some space. Okay. Then doing another barrier. Then leaving some space. And then I use this to cover it. Same thing with this. You can put something down on the sides or use your bench scraper, whatever you want to do, just so it's not, the ends are not exposed to air. And then you just let that rise and sit anywhere from an hour, although my personal experience is usually an hour 15. So we're gonna let that rise and then we'll score it, and I'll show you the purposes of that when we come back. All right, so let's go over to the 12 stages of baking, everybody. We have scaling, mixing, bulk fermentation, folding, dividing, pre-shaping, bench rest, shaping, the final fermentation and final rise, your scoring, your baking, and not so commonly thought of, cooling. Okay, so with this, scaling is where we do mise out all the ingredients, kind of weigh them out, portion them, all that. Mixing, where we combine everything together. We have our bulk ferment, where it sits in the container covered while it rises for 2 hours. You have the folding, which is shared with the bulk fermentation, so halfway through we do our fold. We then divide, after the 2 hour rise, we divide the dough into equal or however many parts. If you want to do 1 large loaves and 2 small loaves, whatever you want to do. Then you have your pre-shaping, especially when you have multiple doughs that you have to do, and weigh them out if you like. Then we have our bench rest, where it sits and rests, sometimes covered. This happens when you have to do a lot of dough at once. So professional bakers who have to make 20 some loaves, they'll pre-shape the dough, let it bench rest, and then get to their shaping. So this is mainly for the dough, not the baker. And then the dough gets shaped, gets put in its cloth for its final fermentation stage, and that final rise in the cloth, as you saw, it expanded and rose. Then we score it, get it in the oven and start baking it, and then when it comes out, we let it cool. Breads need to cool when they come out of the oven before they technically finish. Although there's nothing like fresh bread out of the oven. It's really good. So yeah, that's the 12 stages of baking. Okay, so our dough's been rising for an hour 15 minutes, shaped. During that time, the oven was set to 420 degrees. Our baking stones were in there the entire time so that they rise with the oven. All right, now let's take a look. Oh yeah, look how nice that came out. How big and poofy they got. I have a quarter cup of water ready to go. Now when you're at this stage, you gotta move fast, okay? Because it's a plop and drop. So what's very important is we do a heavy dusting of, I use white cornmeal. If you have yellow cornmeal, that's okay, but just something that doesn't make the bread stick. And then you just hug it and then kind of roll it on. Very good. I'm going to assist it. Just be very careful. Make sure it's shaped well. You don't want to press down. It can deflate on you. Okay, and again, we're going to do the tight roll. I'm going to turn this. Tight roll, tight roll, tight roll. And then you can just flop and pull. Okay. Now that they've been dusted with cornmeal, I take what's called a lame, my lame here, and I'm going to score them. Okay, nice gashes. You have to score your bread. If you don't, it can tear on you. So you guide it about where the steam is to expand. So really quickly, I just put those in. Redust. Then this part, that's why I did it slow for those two, because it goes fast. And then flop, center, score. Gotta be careful of those tears. Plop in. Water. So it can steam. Then I'm gonna set my timer for 10 minutes. And then in 10 minutes, we'll open the oven door, close it, and continue for another 15. See you in a bit. Okay, so our bread has been going for 15 to 20 minutes. Let's take a look. Now careful with these metal ones, they are quite slick. Alrighty, so I'm gonna do a quick tap here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna say the others are done too. Okay, again, they're not at each a perfect shape, but in all honesty, when you're first doing that, you're gonna have a hard time getting that done anyway. So if you wound up like this, one's a little longer, but the others two are pretty good, you've done a pretty good job for your first time making whole wheat bread loaves. And then we have the nice scoring. Oh, you can smell the honey in them too. Closing thoughts. So not all whole wheat flour is created equal. Some of them have more or less hydration. In other words, their ability to absorb water. So if you're using different whole wheat and it seems either a little dry or a little wet, you might have to adjust. But anyway, that is our whole wheat loaves. That's our show today on Bread-a-licious. Until next time.